Good evening, everyone. Once again, we'd like to welcome you to an evening with Senator Michael Moore. And today on the show, along with the Senator, we have the administrator from the WRTA, Steve O'Neill. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Oh, great to have you aboard.
Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
And the whole purpose of having Steve here is there's been a lot of question and a lot of people kind of uptight about some of the bus service may be cut, and we thought rather than speculate and rather than go back and forth through emails and things, that we'd have you here to tell us about it. So I guess I want to start off with that. Just where does Millbury, I know that because we don't have the turnaround at Wheelock Ave, I understand that bus is going to be cut, but I see it still goes there.
No, that's a good point. That's a good launching off point if we could. We did, 3 years ago when I came onto the job, we were in a real state of financial concern. And since that time, we've been at cutting out a lot of unused, underperforming routes. And what we decided to do this fiscal year, because of those cuts that we'd made 2007, 2008, is to hold the line, no more cuts. One of the things that we did do was look at that Wheelock Ave route in terms of the service, whether it was underperforming or not. And we decided, because we had enough changes going on, to keep that as it is right now and not make any changes at all. And one of the things what we wanted to do is to meet with you, the selectmen, and on shows like this, to let the public know that that service is out there. Because one of the issues that came back to us was, how do we know it's out there? We aren't doing a very good job marketing it, so this is a step in that direction. So it is going to stay in service. It's going to stay in service for a while. And I do want to let you, writing public, know that, and the town to know that we've added service on. One of the towns that benefited from the overall review of services at the WRTA was Millbury. We added a service on to the shops at Blackstone using grant dollars that we had from the federal government. And we added on some frequency into some other routes. Route 22 was an example of that. So we've taken some initiatives to bring on additional service, as well as you have a real good functioning Council on Aging here that does a great job. And one of the things that they do very well is the transportation end of things. So despite all the declines in dollars, we were able to maintain services at the COA level as well. So compared to other towns, Millbury's doing fantastically well. I give examples of Holden, where we eliminated a route entirely, the Route 32, and the 110 to Clinton, entirely eliminated that service as well. So despite what happened in those communities, your town is doing very, very well. And again, there's a lot of it attributable to the efforts of yourself, Joe, and certainly to Mike and some of the work that he's done at the state level.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve, how do you see the budget for this past year working out for you?
Well, we're, as you know, I think because of the steps the advisory board has taken the last 2 years, really set the tone and eliminated a lot of things that were extraneous in our world. And we're at a point now where we've cut deeply into those areas. We can't do any more cuts. But because of those cuts, we were able to put a budget on the table for last fiscal year and this fiscal year that's basically level funded. Now, that's not an easy thing to do in our world, as you very well know, because
I'm just going to say, a level funded budget really isn't level funded.
Well, right. We're funded, unlike everyone else in the world who knows a fiscal budget from July 1st to June 30th. Our budget that's being in play right now, is really the state's fiscal 11 budget. We get funded in arrears. So we don't get funded until after the state finally approves its budget. But our service has already been on the road. So it's a real difficult dilemma in that we have to make expectations on the one hand, what we think our cost drivers are going to go up as, fuel, we are a big fuel user, as you can imagine, our health insurance, and our labor costs. And then hoping that what we budget for and put in for the state for our state assistance actually comes to fruition. And there are times in the past where that hasn't been the case. But for the last couple of fiscal years, we've held a line on that. We've been able to bring our costs down. We've taken, for the non-union side, the non-represented side, we've taken furloughs, wage freezes. We've eliminated a lot of, I said, the underperforming routes. We've bundled our utility costs. We've taken every measure that we can possibly take to reduce our budget. And I think because of those, we've managed to balance out things, so.
Now, what has the governor recommended you for a budget? Was it
The
the
governor
3%
recommended
cut?
just the 15 million for the RTAs in his budget, but there is an amount in the state DOT, Department of Transportation budget, of
Okay.
roughly 45 million in there for the RTAs.
Okay.
So we're looking at roughly 45 plus the 15, the 59 million for all the RTAs in the Commonwealth. Our RTA, we're looking at roughly $8.5 million for our RTA. So if we don't get that, we need to look at other areas. We've been plugging holes with financial resources from the federal government, some of the state grants that we can use too. So we take a lot of steps, initiatives to maintain our budget without necessarily relying on just the state to keep services going. But as I said, for the town of Millbury, things are looking pretty well.
And I know the selectmen have discussed this at a few of their meetings, but there's the MBTA assessment, which
Right.
I know when I was on the board, Joe, you were always hopping on that. So I don't know if you want to explain.
Yeah, that's a very
Well-
good point. Joe, and I know you were concerned about that, about the assessments. And what we've done is, working with some of my colleagues, we're able to uncover the fact that people, despite the financial climate that we're in, we're putting more service on the street. And we're basically asking, well, how in God's name are we able to do that when all the funding around us is being curtailed or terminated or reduced significantly? And basically they were saying it's the MBTA money, the assessments. If you put on a new service, if it's a new service that hasn't been on the street before, 100% of that MBTA assessment can be used for that new service. Now, in case of Millbury, if I remember correctly, the numbers are roughly $86,000 that the town gets assessed from the MBTA assessment.
Yes, somewhat.
And you're using roughly about 50-somewhat thousand of that. So you're leaving about 30-somewhat thousand on the table that's not being utilized. So what we would like to do, the WRTA, is to augment the service that you're getting in the town now to even increase it further. So we're looking at ways in which we can do that. Areas that may not be receiving any service in the town that would like to receive it, this could be an example of how we could do it.
What I'd like to ask you, and I'm asking you this because your customers, people that use your service, your buses, ask. By the way, I do got to tell you, I like your new buses.
Well, thank you very much.
I haven't ridden
wanna-
on one, but
wanna-
they look nice.
We'll get you on one.
Get me on one.
We'll get you on one.
Okay? But I do want to say to you, people want to know, I've had a few people ask me, how does he, and I assume this is probably a big part of your decision, how do you make the determination of what routes are going to have weekend or holiday service and determining the hours if you don't have it? In other words, Millbury hasn't had weekend service and holiday service for I couldn't tell you how long. And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for what you're giving us, and it's really encouraging that you've increased our service or at least maintained the service that is appreciable to the people. But how would that determination be made if it was to be made? How would you make that decision?
If we, say for example, the MBTA assessment, we wanted to use some more of that money that we're leaving on the table, what we would do is work with our regional planning agency, Central Mass Regional Planning.
Mm-hmm.
One of your town residents, Mary Ellen Blunt, works very closely with us, and decide where in the town we could use that additional money, A, and B, to use the money in such a way that we could sustain it in out years. In other words, we wouldn't want to use $33,000 all at once, because we don't know where the MBTA is going to be in succeeding years. So the thing is to do it prudently, wisely, and to do it where we're going to get the biggest bang for the dollar. So we would assess what service that you have now, where we think it could be added on. If weekend service would make a sense, then we would certainly look at that. But we want to see the ridership actually use that service. So it would be an assessment, look at your demographics, look at your uses, look at your job centers, your job employment areas, tying in those with other services that we do have. All of that would be part of the analysis that we'd make, and sit down with the town manager and selectmen and say, this is where we think we could go with this, and does it make sense, and would you like to do this?
Oh, okay.
Because in this case, the MBTA assessments, it's money that's, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So
don't wanna
you might
lose
as well, and this, you know, the senator's been very good at pointing this out. If there's resources out there, let's make sure we maximize those resources. So that's something that we want to do, and that's something that I wanted to really speak with you, the senator, and certainly the town manager more, how we can use those resources and add more service on at the same time.
And also, it wasn't just Millbury and us that were confused. There were a lot of communities that were confused about the whole MBTA assessment and how that works. I think everyone thought that the money had to be used by the Mass Bay Transit Authority.
That absolutely was my thought,
Right, and yeah,
and which is why I was very, as you well know,
Right.
because you lived through that crisis of where I was very critical of that assessment. But nobody bothered to take the time and tell us that you folks could utilize that money.
Right.
Had that come around, and I probably wouldn't have been as vocal.
Joe, one of the things we can do here today, too, is let me reach out to you. If there's any occasion where you feel like you need more information, or you think that service that we're not doing is critical and could be done much better, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be here. I'll make myself available to you, the other selectmen, town manager, to give you the answers that you're looking for. So
That's why I'm walking out the door with you, so I can get your card and get your phone number, because this is very important, as we
Yeah.
talked about before the show,
Right.
is to open up the line of communication, because public transportation has become depended upon by a lot more people today for a variety of
Right,
reasons.
right.
And I don't see the economy getting better in the foreseeable future, so I think more demands will be put on you. By the way, I got to ask this question: where are you turning the bus around on Wheelock Avenue?
we're using the same turnaround.
Same turnaround?
The same turnaround. We chose not to get on the street to the other solution that was offered to us. We're utilizing that space right now. We're paying some rent on it, but it's working for everyone, so
Okay.
we're going to keep it going there for the
I
time
had
being.
to ask that
Nope,
question.
that's fine.
Sorry,
That's fine.
Senator, but I had to ask that.
Actually, no, it's not just the public transportation, but the commuter rail and trains, freight trains. I was just out this morning with Congressman Nail, the Grafton and Upton Railroad.
Congressman who?
Congressman Nail, your congressman.
Oh,
We were at the Upton Grafton Railroad where they're actually opened up a new line in Spur. And the freight that you can haul, the costs compared to what you can haul on the road, the roadways today, it's so much cheaper. So you're right, with the amount of trucks and vehicles and the cost of fuel, it's public transportation and other ways of mass transportation that I think you're going to see expand over the next couple of years.
We, in our industry, whenever you raise fares, and we had a fare increase the first time we had in probably 6 or 7 years. We went from $1.25 to $1.50. We now have a one-day pass. We eliminated all the zones, so it's easier for folks that might be working in Millbury, want to go to Worcester. They don't have to pay any transfers right now. It's one fare gets you anywhere in the system. Made things a lot easier, but we increased the fares. We reduced some service in the areas. Our ridership has gone up the last 3 years.
this is great.
And I think it portends a lot of good things that we've done and what can be done going forward. And I do want to talk a little bit about the new technologies and the buses that we acquired. Through the President's American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, we are able to acquire 15 new buses. And we're going to get you on one of these new buses. 4 of the new buses
I
are
want to ride one.
hybrids.
I haven't been on a bus. I don't think I've been on a bus since it was the Worcester Street and Railway, or
Right,
Worcester
right.
Bus Company.
Worcester Bus Company.
Yeah, Worcester
Yes.
Bus Company.
Mr. Fox.
Yep.
Actually, my father used to drive a bus.
That's right. Your father,
Yeah,
your
I
father
think it was around
Archie
my-
was.
I was around my son's age. I'd go for
Yeah.
rides with him on the bus.
15 in those new Gillig buses, and 4 are hybrids, diesel-electric buses. So we're going to get anywhere to 25 to 40% more mileage, less fuel consumption that we'll use with these new hybrid
When
buses.
you get them.
We have them.
Oh, you have
They're
'em?
They're online. They're getting inspected this week. They'll be out on the road end of this week, early next week. So you will be on one of those new hybrids. We'll get you on that. We'll make
You
sure
give me a call, I'll
you're
be
on.
there.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, we received through that American Reinvestment and Recovery Act over $12 million. So roughly half of our money is going to 15 new buses. Not cheap. They're about $300,000, and the hybrids are another $150,000 on top of that. So they're pretty expensive. But what we're going to acquire, too, is new technologies. And what I mean by that, Joe and Mike, is the biggest thing that we're going to get is an automatic vehicle locator. And what that will do is it'll tell,
So you're talking like
Out of-
GPS?
yes,
Okay.
out of all our buses that are on the system, in the system throughout the day, it'll tell us where that bus is on a route, it stops within that route, whether it's going too fast or too slow. And off of that technology hangs a bunch of other things that we're going to be getting as well. And some of that technology is automatic passenger counting. Now, people would say, what do you mean by automatic passenger counting? Right now, we do manually 4 or 5 times during the course of the year, a manual count of certain stops on certain routes where people are getting on and getting off. This APC, automatic passenger counting, will be done automatically on every stop, on every route in the system. So now we're going to have a database of information after we acquire this over a year. We'll be able to track where people are getting on, where they're getting off, and what the more successful routes are, and what the least successful ones are, and make changes accordingly. Already some of our colleagues in Richmond, Virginia are using this technology. They ended up cutting out 4 or 5 routes, saved over $1 million, but took that $5 million and plowed it back into the system and put more frequency on those routes that required it.
Are there any issues with bringing that on?
No, we've been talking to the employees throughout. Once we discovered this is the direction that we are heading in, there's buy-on to this. One of the things it does, it makes it much easier for the driver to use the equipment. Right now, a lot of the drivers, all the drivers, are supposed to make their ADA announcements at every stop along the way. It's a very difficult thing for some of them to do because, you know, it's monotony. It's monotonous. This will take that away from them. This technology will have automatic voice enunciation stops so that every stop along the way, people will know. If you can hear it, it's fine. If you can see it, it will be. If you can't see it, it'll be visually up on the board in the bus as well. So that's another feature that we're going to be getting. So the whole thing, we're trying to make it easier for our customers, easier on our customers to use our buses and our vans going forward. In addition to those items I mentioned, we're going to be getting new fare boxes. And what the Secretary of Department of Transportation has been telling us, he wants to make buses in the Commonwealth more interoperable with the MBTA commuter rail and the MBTA buses. So what we're looking at is a box very similar to what's on the boxes of the MBTA vehicles, whereby someone just has to tap on, they can upload and download their fares on the fare box, so you don't have to have cash, fumble around with coins and change all the time. You can just tap on and eventually have a chip in the back of the card, so our card can be used on the MBTA system and vice versa. So we're heading in that direction as well.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah.
That is different. I can remember, I'm going to date myself now. I can remember getting on a bus and throwing either my bus ticket in when I was a kid in school. When you used public transportation, they didn't have school buses as we know them today of any great
Still have the
degree.
change maker there?
Right,
too?
exactly. The change maker, the bus driver there, or dropping my, let's see, I think when I first started riding the bus, it was something like 15 cents. Not that now, is it?
No, it's $1.50.
$1.50. Actually, when you stop and think about
It's a
it,
good deal.
That's a good deal.
It's a good
I
deal.
mean, because I'm talking 50 years ago,
Right.
at least, and I'm not going to say any more.
comment.
I'm going to leave that alone. But I am impressed with the one thing I will say, in all due respect to your buses versus other bus companies that I observed throughout my travels, is that I think your bus company keeps those buses nice and clean.
Right.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
those things look very impressive going down the street.
Thank you.
And I'm saying, geez, those are good. Even the older ones
We,
are still in good. Well, maybe, you know, I'm
Right.
sure they're, what are they, 15 years old?
15 years old, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I read that somewhere.
You did. Good.
I'm right on
notes.
top of your bus company.
That's right.
know?
I thank you for the comments, by the way. Much appreciated. I'll pass that on to my GM. But yes, we try to do a good job keeping those buses clean. When we came on board 3 years ago, we had signs that were outdated. Shelters were in disrepair. I understand you have a new shelter out in Millbury, too. We'll
And
get
I
to
want
that.
to thank you for that.
You're
By the
welcome.
way,
8 years in the process?
contrary, 8 years in the making. Contrary to public opinion, I was not opposed to the shelter. What I was opposed to is, I'm still opposed to it, by the way, the location.
Right.
But I threw in the towel because I can count, and I couldn't count to 3 on my argument with my colleagues. So I gave in. But that was the only issue I had with the bus shelter. Was a great idea.
Right.
But I didn't like it where we put it. But
Right.
like I say, I can count, and I couldn't count to 3. And so I just quit.
So anyways, we had buses that were of different colors, so it was very uncoordinated, and it looked that way to the public. So
I remember that.
we changed it all, and now we have the red, white, and blue scheme on our signs, on the buses, so people know when they see the red, white, and blue, they know they're at a stop, and they know it's a WRTA. So we've got more changes coming, the new technologies that we've been talking about, but the whole thing is to try and make it easier on our riders to take the bus. And one of the things we really like with the new technologies is that we're going to have automatic display boards at certain locations in the system that shows where our buses are. But if you happen to be in a location where we don't have one of these automatic display boards, you're going to be able to pull out your cell phone and either get a text message that your bus is due in 5 minutes, or you can look it up yourself. So we're moving into that new age as well. So
that's good.
people are going to be able to tell
I
where the
used
bus
to
is.
look up the street and be running after the bus half the time, so we have come a long way. We have come a long way, Steve.
So a lot of good things happening, WRTA.
Yeah. There's actually, I think we started discussing it before the show started. There's this, the toll tax credits that, as Steve was saying, the way the funding works with the company's not forward funded. So one of the initiatives that the RTA caucus in the legislature has been working with the regional transit authorities on is trying to get that forward funding, which means we would have to fund the program, the RTA, for 2 years. So when I first got on, Steve approached me about this toll tax credit, which I don't know if you want to explain to them. So.
Sure. I want to thank Mike, and I wanted to thank two of his colleagues, Senator Chandler and Senator Brewer as well, along with Stan Rosenberg. All of you have been instrumental. We came to the senators and the state representatives 3 years ago and said, look, you got to do something about the RTAs. They're falling down around you. The buses are in disrepair. Ridership is there, but you're not funding us to the levels that you need to fund us. You're causing deficits that could reverberate back onto the towns and cities that we provide the service to on their when they go to Moody's to get their bond ratings. So we raised a big stink about that. To their credit, they got around the table, they coalesced, and they said, look, we got to do something. So one of the things they immediately did was to restore the full faith and credit of the Commonwealth. So when we go out to borrow for our funding, and we have to borrow because we're funded in arrears, our borrowing is backed by the state government, where it wasn't in the past. So we get lower rates because of that. So there's a savings that you don't have to cut more service because of that savings. They created an RTA legislative caucus. So right now there's over 108 members, senators and state representatives, that convene on a periodic basis to listen to us, what our issues are, and get that fed back to the state administration. So it's just another vehicle for us that's worked out tremendously well. The third thing that we've been working on together is the toll credits. And basically what that is, it's a toll credit whereby the federal government recognizes money that the state has put in to either build, maintain, or operate toll credit roads in the Commonwealth. And in one instance, one fiscal year, I think it's $85.5 million, whereby the state has invested in those toll roads. That $85.5 million can be used as a match for capital projects or for operating, as Mike was talking about. But for capital, let's take capital projects as an example, whereby the federal government for a bridge or a road project, and I know Millbury is working on a bridge project here in the town, that the town would have to come up with 25 or 20% of the cost of that repair of that bridge. In this instance, in our instance, that 20% would be waived because of the expenditure made by the state in other areas, i.e. the toll roads. So 100% of the money would come from the federal government instead of that 80-20 match. So that's one way where the senators has helped out tremendously.
Yeah, right now we're in the process of applying, hopefully to get receive this benefit, but we're still waiting for the final outcome right now.
Right.
See, I always have felt, and you may not think that looking back at some of the headlines, but I always felt public transportation was the way to go. But I'm also one of these people that feel that if you're going to do something like that, it needs to be done right, and it needs to be done right.
Or don't do it. Or don't
right,
do it.
don't do it. And your management team seems to have taken a more aggressive stance in that direction, unless I'm misreading this.
No, our approach at the WRTA has been, look at if you're going to provide the service, make sure it's a good service. Make sure that people can count on that service. Have we done everything that we set out to do? No, we've got a long way to go yet, but we've done a major step in the right direction on some of the things that we've done to address the problems at the WRTA. And with your help and the senator's help and the state representatives' help, we can do even more. You know, one of the things that we're looking at is how can Millbury, for example, because of the good service it provides in the Council on Aging, perhaps help out some of the towns that don't have as good service around it. And we're looking at maybe Grafton and helping out the town of Upton, who would like to have some service. So those are some of the things, being creative, that we can do and look at. as to how we can provide even more service out there with the same dollars that we have. So,
I would think there would be a market even as far as Milford, or is there a reason you wouldn't go into Milford?
no, Milford, we could look at. We usually work with the towns that kind of wave their hand up in our face and say,
Oh, I
hey,
see.
what about us? So
Well, that makes sense.
Upton has been knocking on our doors for several years now. And they said, what can we do to help out? And so that's where we're at right now. We're looking at what type of
Where's
service.
the new Metro Regional Transit Authority boundaries? Is that Marlboro?
I wish it was more east of us, but no, they knock on the door of Marlboro, yes, and Southborough as well,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago?
Metro, well, I came in 2 years ago, we
They
told
created
everyone
a
at
new
the
Regional
time.
Transit Authority, Metro West Regional Transit Authority, which,
Right, created some real difficulty for us
Yeah.
because we had a small pie as it was, but it became even smaller with another RTA added on to it.
and no additional funding.
And no additional funding.
Of course not.
So-
So,
I know the answer to this question, but I've also had people ask me this question, Steve, if you could. With why doesn't the region, or any transit authority, but why doesn't the Regional Transit Authority go into the charter bus business to help offset some of your expenses?
Can't, any industry I've been in government for 30-plus years, the transit side is very heavily regulated from the federal perspective, and to use the dollars that we get from the Federal Transit Administration, we're prohibited from running any type of charter service. It's very well watched by our auditor at the end of the fiscal year, during the course of the year, by the programmers at the Federal Transit Administration level, so it's just prohibited from doing that.
Okay. And like I say, I knew the answer, but I was surprised. A lot of people say, well, if they're looking to raise money, why don't they charter? And of course, I explained to them.
Right.
As much as I knew about it, you were a little more in depth than I was. I just said, bottom line, the federal government, as long as they're pumping money into the bus company, don't allow them to
Right,
do it.
that's right.
You went a little further with that.
Right.
Senator, we got a couple of minutes left if you want to throw something to Steve here.
no, I just want to thank him for coming on the
Thank
show today to explain some of the issues and hopefully clear up some of the misconceptions out there
Right.
regarding the service. And,
Right.
And is there anything you want to add
Again,
at the
just
end
want
here?
to extend my hand to you and to all the town. If there's anything that you think we could do that we're not doing or we could do better, we're more than happy to sit down and work out those details with you. We're here to help.
And I want to thank the senator for making his office, and himself, of course, making you available, because this was the senator's idea to have you on the show. And he ran it by me. He was hoping that we could do this without having to have a referee in the middle. And as you can see, it turned out okay.
That's fine.
I certainly, having some knowledge of what's going on and doing a little more research into the regional transit area, have a different outlook. I know we can work together. And
Sure
I
we
think
can.
it's important in this economic status, economic country that we're living in today, that the community should, I agree with you, the community should work with the Worcester Regional Transit Authority. And we do have an excellent transportation person with Judy O'Connor down at the Senior Center. So there's no question we're well represented on that end. And like I say, after we're done here, I'm going to walk out to your car. I'm going to give you my cell phone and my card, and you can
Okay,
give me
good.
your card.
Excellent.
We can move on. Senator, I want to thank you.
well, thank you, Joe.
Thank you,
once
Mike.
again.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it, as
And,
always.
I think this has been very entertaining and very enlightening to have Steve here, and we look forward to bringing other people in, because
But
you
the
certainly,
work-
in a short period of time, answered, I'm sure, a lot of questions
Good.
that people have. And there is never a dumb question. If somebody asks it, it's a legitimate
That's right,
question.
that's
I
right.
believe that. Senator,
I
so
just-
people can get in touch with you?
My phone number, 617-722-1485, and the email is michael.o.moore@state.ma.us. And as Joe was saying, if there's any other issues that may come up, just contact us. We can maybe try to get the right representative that we can come and try to answer your questions. But again, thank you very much for watching.
Right, and Steve, thank you once
Thanks
again
for
for
having me.
being
Thank you.
here. My name is Joe Coggins. I'm obviously on the Board of Selectmen, at least for now, and let's hope that continues.
Well, with all the signs out in town, I don't think you have to worry.
I think we're in pretty good shape, but I never take anything for granted after seeing the last election that the state had.